Wow. Good afternoon, AMAC. And happy Juneteenth. I want to take a moment, though, because I don't want us to miss the moment that we as a country recognize what is truly Americans' history, which is a marker acknowledging fully ending enslaved Americans in our country. And here we are, 2022, in the room, bosses, career executives, entrepreneurs. Yes, we are on the shoulders of giants. Yes, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Yes, it is important to understand Americans' history in order to understand and embrace America's promise. So again, happy Juneteenth. I also want to say thank you to you, Ebony, and to all of the members and leadership of AMAC. Are you all doing okay? Yeah. All right, because I know this is the first time in a few years that we've all gotten together, so I'm interested on who's going to be the folks that's going to cut up during this conference, because I know there's going to be some cutting up here because we're so excited to be together. I know I am excited. So I want to take a moment and thank each and every one of you. Thank you for what you do every single day in your respective roles. Thank you for what you are doing to make a difference and to make an impact. Now, my goal today is not just to inspire. My goal today is to hopefully share a few insights. But most importantly, my goal today is to ask you a fundamental question. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do boldly? What are you going to do to make sure that your tomorrow is better than today because you are here at this conference? When I think about AMAC, I think about the work that is necessary and required. I think about almost 4 decades where AMAC has been working to advance the interest of minorities and women in aviation and aerospace, and especially by increasing participation in airport contracting. If you have benefited from AMAC, let me hear by a round of applause, which should be everyone in this room. The work has truly been exemplary, and your commitment and your impact have not wavered or lessened during the past couple of challenging years. In fact, AMAC has doubled down, making sure that policies were in place when we think about access to funding during the pandemic, recognizing that so many of you were hit negatively, and AMAC stood up and heard your voice and did all that they could to address policies and practices to improve the outcomes. I also want to acknowledge that all of you stood fast, because when I look here in this room today, I think this is like a full house. I think there is like 1,000 of you here that said we will show up, we will make sure that we can connect and reconnect and think about what we can do better to grow our respective businesses. I also think about the impact. As someone who has launched a foundation, I know what that entails. Your contribution to the development of educational programs for emerging aviation and aerospace professionals and the funding of scholarships have been nothing short of phenomenal. In fact, over $500,000 in scholarships since the foundation's beginnings. That's important, $500,000. And this past year, even though it's been a tough year, the foundation gave over $50,000 in scholarships. Now, this is going to be a we thing and a lot of interaction. So I want you all to think about one thing that you did that was super dope during the pandemic. The reason why is because we have all been exhausted. We have all dealt with heartaches and heartbreaks, set-ups and setbacks. But still we are here, still we rise. And that means we have to reflect on some of the things that we did that was really awesome. I became a CEO of a Fortune 100 company during the pandemic. I know that each and every one of you have a brag moment that maybe you have suppressed. Maybe you didn't want to say anything or share it. So I'm going to give you 15 seconds to look to the person to your right and give them your brag. I mean your real brag. Are y'all ready? I'm giving you time to think about it. Your real brag moment. All right? Ready? Brag. Go. Five seconds. 3, 2, 1. Brag over. Brag over. Brag over. Y'all had a lot to say. Now, did that feel good? It felt really good. I know somebody said my kid graduated. I know someone said I got a new contract. Someone may have said I got married. Whatever it is, make sure that you always take time to smell the roses. Make sure you always take time to be okay bragging, especially in a safe environment, because we all have things to be proud about, and it feels good when you can brag with people who care about you and people that are affirming and cheering each other on, which is what I know that each and every one of you do here today. We cheer each other on, so don't be afraid to brag a little bit. Now let me talk about the vision, your vision, to create economic equity, access, and wealth. Let me repeat that. Economic equity, access, and wealth. We all know that talent is created equally, opportunity is not. And it is time to create economic equity, access, and wealth for minorities and women in the aviation and aerospace industries. Yes, it's simple, it's powerful, it's necessary, and it's now. It resonates with me on every level. It speaks to my own story, professionally and personally, and very much to my own passion for financial inclusion for all. So if you don't mind, I would love to just spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about who's up here today. I think it's important to share our stories, our vulnerabilities, our insecurities. Yes, we did not wake up like this, but it is within us. This comes from something that my father, Otis Brown, would always tell me. He would say to Shonda, people see your glory, but they don't know your story. And if we're honest, during this pandemic, if you were like me, you hit a low. If you were like me, you had to remind yourself that it's okay to not be okay. We were navigating fires on the West Coast. We were navigating the injustices that we were reminded of with the murder of George Floyd. We were navigating and still navigating a pandemic where every one of us were impacted in some way, if not multiple ways. So yes, we had to give ourselves grace and remind ourselves that it is okay to not be okay. For many of us, we had to look at our children and realize that they are not okay. Many of us had to take that moment to really maybe recognize that maybe your child had a learning difference that you really did not understand or fully embrace. Many of us had to realize that our parents were struggling because they did not have an opportunity to see you, to touch you, to hug you. It almost broke us. But remember, pressure makes diamonds, and we are diamonds. And so, when I think about my story, I think you'll understand my passion and my alignment with this vision of equity and inclusion and wealth. You see, I was born in Rochester, New York. I am the proud daughter of Otis and Rosie Brown. My dad worked at a warehouse for Xerox. My mother was a school teacher. We ended up moving to New Jersey, where we lived for a short time, before we packed up everything that we owned, my mom, my dad, my 2 brothers, and myself in a car, and we drove to Texas. You see, I know what it's like to start a new path in an apartment sitting on crates. I know what it's like when your parents do their very best, like going to Rent-A-Center so that you could have some furniture or have a TV. I know what it's like to have your parents dream big, like enroll 3 children in karate, but I never got past white belt, yellow stripe. The money struggle was real. I know what it's like for a father to have a vision and where you would start piano lessons but could not complete piano lessons. I know what it's like to look outside and see your car and then not see your car. The point is, I know what it's like to be long on love, long on values, and short on money. And I know what it's like when you open up that refrigerator, and I promise all I saw was baking soda. But somehow, some way, a meal was created. And so I know firsthand financial insecurity. And I know firsthand what that does to your self-worth. I want to remind all of us that your self-worth is not determined by your net worth. Because we have all, I am sure, shared in some form or fashion that story. But I also want to talk about the moments of disruption, the power of information. There was a woman and a man named Mr. and Miss Patterson, and they told me about this program called Inroads, the power of information. Because they shared a program called Inroads, which was a program for talented minorities to give you exposure to corporate America. Without the power of information, I may not stand before you as one of 2 Black women CEOs and the first woman CEO of TIAA. The power of information. Are you sharing information freely? That was my disruptor. I also remember the power of advocacy before I even understood what advocacy meant. You see, when you are in Inroads, you go through an interview process and a company will select you. Where there was a woman named Valerie Manning, and she worked at Fannie Mae, and she was a recruiter. And she was on the college campus interviewing a lot of Inroads prospects. She had one internship job available. After interviewing me and others, she went back to Fannie Mae, and she said, "I found your intern. Her name is Sarah. But there's this other girl." Without Valerie Manning using her platform, which was not a big title, she did not get extra bonus for expending another intern. That's an expense. She had one job. But Valerie Manning advocated for Thasunda. And without Valerie Manning saying, "But there's this other girl," I may not be here today. So my point is, are you using your platform? Are you using your voice? You do not have to wait to be a CEO. In fact, if you do it like Valerie Manning, you could help create the next CEO. Are you using your platform? I think about when I was 6 months pregnant with my second child. Anyone ever do the mental gymnastics in your head? Anyone, or is it just me? Mental gymnastics is a 10 in my head at times. I remember when I was asked to run a P&L, and that was my goal. I didn't know it would be over $1 trillion now in assets under management. But I almost talked myself out of it. The hiring manager told me about the job. It's a P&L. I said, "Well, you know I'm 6 months pregnant, right?" He was like, "Okay. You know this is my second child. It'll be a Schedule C, and I will be out for 3 months." This is not eating bonbon weight. He's like, you coming back, right? It's like, yes. Here's the point. Sometimes fear will have you say things that will make you almost miss your shot. So now I do those mental gymnastics silently. And then I show up expecting the opportunity. So sometimes we have to silence those mental gymnastics because that disruption is right there for the taking if you will act so boldly, even when you are scared. And then I remember a conversation with my father. After I graduated from college, went home to talk to my parents, and for some reason we got on the topic of retirement. And my dad showed me his statement. And when a daughter has to look a father in his eyes, a man full of pride, and say, Dad, you never participated in your 401k. Your pension is not sufficient. To have to tell Otis Brown that he had a shot to have done more for his family, but because the information did not reach a man in a warehouse in a way that he could receive it, over 40 years of not contributing. And then I had to tell my dad, we have to do everything that you can to double up. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And before he fully retired, he made real steps in contributing to his retirement. And here I am now, a CEO of a retirement company, where I get to think about educators like Rosie Brown and the man in the warehouse like Otis Brown to make sure that everyone understands the power of contributing towards their retirement, and for African Americans recognizing that 82% of African Americans retire without enough. How will we ever close the generation gap when the daughter has to take care of the father and help raise her children and take care of herself? How will we ever do it? So I am waking up every day along with my colleagues passionate about retiring inequality. Next, I want to talk about intentionality in the art of the question. Question: if you were not afraid, what would you do? Would you adopt a child like I did? Would you start a foundation like I did? Would you start a business like many of you have? Will you take that next promotion that I know you want? What would you do? Ebony mentioned the Otis and Rosie Brown Foundation. It was important to me to start a foundation on behalf of my parents while they're still alive. What would you do if you were not afraid? To see Otis Brown, a man raised in Louisiana in the segregated South, who did not go to college. To see Rosie Brown raised in Alabama as an educator. And to see the coolest cat on the planet award scholarships with his name on it. That is the power of not being afraid to do what is on your heart. That is the power of acting within intentionality and not waiting for tomorrow, because tomorrow is not promised. What will you do today to make an impact? I want you to know that you are worthy and deserving to go after your deepest fears. You are worthy and deserving to go after that next contract. I want you to know that when you think about being bold, I want you to think about what got you here may not get you there. So how are you leveling up? I want to talk about your diversified portfolio. I want to talk about it from a personal sense and then professional. Anybody tried the work-life balance thing? It's a lie. It is a bona fide lie. I was trying it, but the S on the chest was not superwoman, it was spent. I was trying it, but nothing reconciled, because if it is a balance sheet, It's supposed to reconcile, and it never did. So finally, I decided to shift my perspective. And I decided to live my life like a diversified portfolio and tell myself some truth. The truth is, you only have 100%, not 150. Tell the truth. The truth is, my children do not get 100% of me. Tell the truth. My children get about 30%. That truth allowed me now to be more intentional, to be present. Knowing the truth allowed me to not multitask when I am talking to my 6-year-old or my 14-year-old or my 16-year-old or my 25-year-old. When you live your life like a diversified portfolio, you will put everything that matters to you in it. I'm a mother, I'm a philanthropist, I'm a mentor, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a sister, I'm an auntie. I put it all in there and allocate. If you live your life like a diversified portfolio, just like the markets, you will see volatility. Sometimes you may need to short the stock. But if you live your life like a diversified portfolio, everything that matters to you is in it. You give yourself permission to respond to the volatility, so you recalibrate. When I became a CEO, I had to allocate more time to work, to learn. But then when I got over that learning hump, I could reallocate back something else. I give myself permission. When I see my children may need more mommy time, I may put a pause on a different allocation and be present. When people ask me to do one more mentorship, but I've allocated that time, I can say no now because I know saying yes for 10 more minutes is 10 minutes away from my children or 10 minutes away from calling my parents. Here is the bottom line. If you live your life like a diversified portfolio, over time, you will outperform this thing called life. You see, on any given day, I may not be a great executive, but over time, I think I am a very good executive. There are days where I feel like I'm failing as a parent, but over time, I am a really good mom. There are times where I feel like I fail as a daughter because I do not live in Texas when my parents need me, but I know that I am a good daughter. You can outperform this thing called life if everything that matters to you is in your portfolio. If you live your life with joy, which means everything is in your portfolio, you will outperform. And so as I wrap, I want to know what is in your personal portfolio, but also think about your professional portfolio. Many of you have done well in your business with the government contracts, etc., but maybe there's time to level up. How are you allocating time to be bold, to take that next jump, to go from small to mid to major? Are you open to having real conversations over this conference? Are you open to being vulnerable? Are you open to really talking about your balance sheet and say maybe we should partner together because as a collective we can do more? Are you open to really talking about what will it take for me to get access to capital? What don't I know? What do I need to know? How do I sign up and level up even more for AMAC? How do I bring my voice to the table when it comes to policy making? Are you ready to climb that next mountain, or is base camp on the mountain you just climbed sufficient? I would say no. And so I hope that as you think about this conference, I hope you don't just spend the time eating well, laughing well, and listening well. I hope that you say less and do more. I hope that you encourage each other. I hope that you will say this conference was the disruptor, just like Inroads was to me. I hope that this conference will allow you to have a transformational shift. That if you have one contract, you get two. If you have one business, you build another. If you're in corporate America, you decide that you're going to take that shot. And you're going to reach back as you climb, because it takes a village. It is the power of the ecosystem that allows us to create generational wealth. And the stats are staggering. We know that if we do not do more, we will never close this wealth divide. If we do not think about how can we build generational wealth and get to it, we will not transfer anything but debt. If we do not share what we know, we will stifle information. Information is power. Who are you sharing the information with? So, to bring this to a close, lead with intentionality. Make sure you take care of your employees. Let's retire inequality. Make sure your employees have a savings account, understand the power of compounding. Make sure that they invest. Make sure that they contribute to a 401k or an IRA. Give them information so that while they're working with you and for you, their days will be better because they had information and they had people who cared about them. Many of you lead diverse people, Black and brown and women. Are you giving them the information that they need, even if they're there just for a season? Be a disruptor for others. Be bold. Diversify your portfolio so you can outperform this thing called life. Have real conversations. Engage and double down with AMAC. Say less, do more, be the change, and let's build wealth together. Thank you.
It is